want Bitcoin to win. You want government to see that big pile of Bitcoin that's out there as a potential savior for their fiscal asses. Now, all of a sudden, they can't live without Bitcoin. The current financial system is empowered by selling you nothing for something, selling you a fiat dollar to get your time. They sell you nothing that they got at a cheaper price than you're going to get tomorrow for your stuff. They use tomorrow's money to pay for yesterday's goods at today's prices. And they make the VIG on the difference. And that's why the wealth is rolled up to the finance class. That's the promise of Bitcoin. Does Tom ever get tired of winning? Fuck no. I never get tired of winning. Why would you? Winning's rocks.
What is real? How do you define real?
You can't jump into cash. Cash is trash. What do? You get out.
Tom Luongo is a former research chemist, amateur dairy goat farmer, anarcho-libertarian, and obstreperous Austrian economist, whose work can be found on sites like Zero Hedge, LouRockwell.com, Bitcoin Magazine, and Newsmax Media. Tom has a fantastic wife of 30 years and a teenage daughter, both of whom humble him with affection and respect he feels is now only mostly undeserved. Professionally, Tom has spent a lot of his waking hours inside various analytic laboratories testing your water and soil for contaminants, or in university research assessing how you process arsenic, where it is found and how to get rid of it. He's watched an entire industry be created by government fiat and destroyed in the same manner. He ran for Florida House once and got 2.7% of the vote on Guy Fawkes Day. He's since grown up a lot. Tom then spent 5+ years solving the puzzle of an electroless nickel boron coating that has intriguing wear resistance properties. Too bad the coating was better than the company's business model. After that imploded, he spent a couple of years as someone else, ghostwriting more opinions on stocks and markets than any one person should have in a handful of lifetimes. The pay sucked, so quantity, folks, was key. Today, Tom Luongo is the owner and publisher of Gold, Goats, and Guns, where he attempts to connect the false narratives of geopolitics to viable long-term investment theses. As for politics, Tom believes that, and I quote, individuals are the only people with enough knowledge about their own lives to have a hope of making the right decisions for themselves, and no amount of guidance or central planning can help that process along, end quote. He also thinks that all interactions between people should be peaceful and voluntary, free from the coercive power of the state in all its guises. Tom built the house he lives in. In short, he's a libertarian who distrusts all human organizations larger than a two-handed game of poker. Tom loves hockey, his family, the art of drumming, board games of all kinds, a logically consistent argument, and the beauty of spontaneous order, not necessarily in that order. And he owns a few guns. Finally, Tom feels it's time to get serious about collapsing institutions. Therefore, he's long guillotines, rope makers, and led futures. Tom Luongo, head sneech, welcome back to the Bitcoin Matrix podcast for the 4th time, sir. How are you?
I am good, Cedric, and it's really funny when you read back that intro that it's on my website. It's actually the profile I wrote on my website, and I appreciate you reading that, because it's at times it almost feels like it's updated, but most of it's still, it's all true. It's whether or not it's all kind of current to the way I see the world. Because it's good to see you. It's good to be back, and I appreciate you reaching out to me to do this again.
Yeah, I love chatting with you. We had dinner a few weeks ago, and we're going to have a holiday meal coming up soon at a local steakhouse. You've been on the show 3 times already. I think these are important to note. I think people should go back to listen to them again, or at least once if they haven't heard them. On episode 120 in August 2022, Bitcoin, Gold, Goats, and Guns. In July of 2023, we talked about the myth of America. And in March of this year, we talked about your piece, The Counter-Revolution, Comfortable Wolves, Nuts, and Sluts. And, maybe that's a good place to start, if anywhere, is, where are the comfortable wolves today? Or what's the temperature check, maybe, for the wolves around the country. I
I
think there's
think
a
it,
couple of events to highlight, but I'll let you kick it off from there.
well, it's interesting. When we had dinner a few weeks ago, Cedric, it was funny, sitting around the table with, the various people who were there. I'm not going to name names or anything. It's fine. And what was interesting was that it was clearly, I think at that moment in time, it was just before the election, a couple of weeks before the election. I think you were probably the most black pilled of the people at the dinner table. And and at a point during dinner, I'm like, I think it's my solemn duty to try to help Cedric along here, that things aren't quite as bad as you may perceive them to be. Not to say that being cynical and being blackpilled at that moment in time wasn't I don't know a good position to take. Right? It's not that I had any real fundamental problems with it, because depending on the day of the week, at that point, I might have actually agreed with you about everything, because I was literally. I talked about this a lot. I was like going back and forth from stem to stern, almost feeling, you know, bipolar about all of this. I'd wake up on Monday and I'm like, everything's gonna be fine. I wake up on Tuesday and I'm like, I see some other headline. I'm like, holy shit, the whole fucking world's gonna end, right? So, so you caught me on a good day, like trying to be at least a reasonably, optimistic about what was going to happen, um, with the election and everything else. The I think the comfortable wolves decided they were uncomfortable, and they came out in droves and they voted properly. And then another layer of comfortable wolves, and I would say very comfortable wolves, and these would be the wolves of Wall Street, made their presence felt behind the scenes to ensure that the now uncomfortable beta wolves, whatever you want to call it, the members of the pack, these are the alpha wolves, finally said, you know what? No, these people we have to give them their due, because otherwise there's not going to be a pack for us to lead later, if we want to continue to extend that metaphor. So, at something happened clearly behind the scenes, be it a deal was cut between Trump and Biden or something, but somebody or some bodies ensured that the election couldn't be stolen, at least at the presidential level. Now, we can talk about the down ballot vote. We can talk about, I think they've stolen at least 3 Senate seats and probably a handful, if not a half a dozen or more House seats and whatnot. That's where that's where they're still counting half of these freaking things and playing this game. They're still trying to push the popular vote. They're trying to push Trump under 50% of the popular vote, so they have something to keep their troops, um, you know, their spirits up, so that if they do want to create a rent a mob and send them into Washington D.C. on January 6th to get rid of the evil Trump and Fuhrer, well, they can still do that if they need to. Clearly, I think what's happening now is that we're dealing with some very, very evil people trying to effectively, I wouldn't say meme us in the World War III, but certainly escalate things into that scenario. And this was something that you and I talked about at dinner that night. Like, not to say that wouldn't be their end move, but then you have to trust kind of that there were other people also operating to stop that from happening. I think I think if you really look through all of if you really piece through like all of the little bits of information and all the little tells that are out there, that's clearly what's going on just behind the headlines. That there are very powerful people trying to start World War III, and there are very powerful people trying to stop it. And we'll see what happens, because at the end of the day, no one really wants it. What they want is to blackmail us into accepting it, and to accepting their continued rule, and they're threatening us with thermonuclear war again with this shit. And you and I are both of the generation that have to grew up with this. I was flipping through my Twitter feed earlier, and a friend of mine sent me a picture. He's like, "Dude, I just bought a Gen X bomb shelter," and it was a picture of a desk from our elementary schools, or where we all had to like hide under the desk, duck and cover, which we did that shit when I was a kid. And it was ridiculous. So, but there it is.
Yeah, I remember being at that dinner, and I remember very clearly you were like, "You need to talk to your therapist. You were way too black pilled." Uh, And I was very, I had a very doom and gloom attitude. I'm way more optimistic now than I was then. And everything you said at that dinner has really played out
Mhm.
in kind of in line in the framework that you kind of outlined while we spoke. I'm kind of curious, I still have my guard up though. And I'm kind of wondering what kind of moment do you think we're in? It does feel way more optimistic. Um, do we, is this a chance to dream now? Are we in
Not
the
yet.
clear?
No,
Um,
no, we're not in the clear. We have an opportunity. We should dream. We should never stop dreaming. Because if you don't have, you have to remain somewhat positive. Because I'm not a particularly spiritual kind of guy. I mean, really not. But at the end of the day, like, if you don't put positive crap out into the universe, if you don't put a positive vibe out into the universe, if you don't go out with some kind of a smile on your face and go, no, even if it's gleeful anarchy in your heart that you're going to tear down as an iconoclast and tear down all these horrible people, right? That's all you're. Even if that's all that's how you manifest your positivity. Great, like the meme lords, like did a great job keeping all our spirits up during these last 4 years, as Dave Collum has put it, and he's been talking about that a lot recently. And I think Dave's right about that. But we're not in the clear. Clearly not. Like the fucking British are desperate to try and start World War III. I'm dead serious, and because they need an excuse to collapse the existing financial system and the current political and financial system. The system's collapsing. We know it's collapsing. You run a Bitcoin podcast based on the very idea that the whole thing is collapsing. Well, at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, well, what will they do? To what end will they go to stop that system from collapsing in terms that are not favorable to them? Right? They architected the system. They stole all our money. They stole generations of fucking wealth that's now unearned, and they want to hold on to that because with that they have real raw power. I was just listening to the Joe Rogan podcast with Mark Andreessen before I walked out to my office to do this podcast. And about, I don't know, an hour 45 minutes into it, and that's when they were at that part in the podcast where they're talking about debanking and Operation Choke Point 2.0 and all of this stuff and the application of absolute raw administrative power. Kind of the managerial state, the James Burnham style managerial state taken to AIDA, which is what we have today. And that's what's thoroughly and utterly under assault. What's what Trump represents and the people that are around Trump, the people that have rallied around Trump, right? The Andreessens of the world, the Elon Musks and all these guys. They are, again, it's not a matter of whether or not they're pure as a driven snow or this, that, or anything else, and they may have ulterior motives. And I don't, fine. You want to go out and trace, you want to keep tabs on those people, fine. You should. You should never in a million years trust anybody. Distrust but verify is how I operate, right? But at the same time, when people do prove to you, or at least as of right now, that they're doing, for lack of a better term, God's work or our work, well, then you should trust them to go through, that period of history, that period of time where they can be effective to do great things, even if they're only doing it for their own self-interest, which is fine with me. I don't care. Their motives don't have to be pure. I ain't one of these fucking people that I need you to do the right thing for the right reasons. No, I need you to do the right fucking thing, even if it's for your own personal reasons. Because by the way, if you do it for the wrong reasons, I'll know. And 5 years from now, when you try and close the door and lock us all in your digital gulag, then, oh, by the way, we're going to take you out too. Because we already took out the other guys. Like, who do you think? I mean, think about it. Like, if we win this round, right? You only don't think that we can't win the next round. Like the people, you think Elon Musk and Peter, and if you're really worried about those guys, right? Like the Musks and Andreessens and all, if you're worried that those people are really freaking evil, do you really think they're more entrenched and powerful than the people who built the Vatican and City of London and Wall Street and the atomic bomb and the Bank of England and all of this shit that's been running for 400 fucking years? You really think they're more powerful than that? If you do, you should have your fucking head examined, because these are all nouveau riche in comparison. They're not that decadent. They're not that evil. I mean, at the end of the day, they're not that, they haven't had time to become that decadent yet, right? So, like, I don't, Elon Musk has many things. He plays fucking Diablo, for Christ's sake. He doesn't, fuck goats. Okay? Like, there's a fundamental difference. He's not drinking baby's blood or whatever it is, and doing the adrenochrome thing, and dancing, barking naked at the moon after dousing himself in goat's blood. He's not doing that shit, but we know some of these people are. He's playing fucking Diablo, for Christ's sake. He's like Warcraft. Like, that's, you know what I mean? Like, that's who he is. We should take him as, and we should, honestly, we should consider him perspective. Does that mean that he doesn't have other grand plans that are evil? Well, possibly, but as of right now, I don't care. And so, do we let our guard down? No. But we have to win this round. And winning this round now means going through the order of operations that tears down their system, as in the order that, and we're going to need the people who are involved in that system, because they know how it operates, and they know how it operates better. No offense, but to the Bitcoiners and to the gold bugs and to the Austrians and to the NAP the hardcore NAP libertarians. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to war with Sal the Agorist from Twitter. I mean, I like Sal, but I'm not going to war with her. Like, I'm just not doing it. I'm going to war with Jamie fucking Dimon if I'm going to war against the Bank of England. I'm going to war with the Federal Reserve. I want the Federal Reserve on my side. I like Sal the Agorist, but I'm going to war with the Federal Reserve. Like, you know what I mean? And it's the same thing. They have the power, they have the resources, and they have the ability to take the current system and shift it 90 degrees out of phase towards, they're going to shift it towards themselves, but that can also dovetail with us, with what we want. Because if you really think about how, in order to beat that existing system, it's been so tilted towards them, we don't get anything from it. So any shift away from it is going to be beneficial for us. Is it going to be enough? I don't know. Well, but that's what we're supposed to do, is keep demanding more until we get from these people what we want. We have the ability to influence this situation, and they're going to need us just as much as we're going to need them. And then we get to decide later on whether they're full of shit or not, and whether they're going to get rid of them later. I mean, JP Morgan doesn't have to run the new banking system later on. Odds are they will, but they don't have to, because I haven't really filled in the details when I talk about this. But what I mean by this is that we have a system tilted towards the big banking, the big banking conglomerate, the fiat money, the shitty debt indexing rates, LIBOR versus SOFR, and all this stuff like that I talked about in the past. In order for us, what does winning look like? Winning looks like where the system's now biased toward capital, flowing down the production stack towards the lower end of the division of labor. What I mean by that is towards lower order goods. We have a functional deficit in the production of lower order goods, raw steel, rolled aluminum, all of this stuff. We have an overinvestment in purple hair dye, nose rings, Marxism. Okay, it's an overinvestment and that stuff's everywhere, and we have it, and we have that overinvestment in those things because we had a monetary system. We have a monetary system that had pushed the money there, and we had an administrative and managerial state which made sure that the money kept flowing in that direction. And it was designed to, and it was functionally and fundamentally designed this way. And it was designed to be one big blackmail, system of blackmail. Mark Andreessen is talking about this exact thing. He's talking about debanking and using soft power through the pressure on the banks to get the private companies to do the enforcement, the government enforcement, right? And this is, and it doesn't matter if we're talking civil asset forfeiture or anything else. It's all right there. The libertarians their criticism of this was all absolutely spot on all through the 80s and the 90s and the aughts and everything else. I learned it from them. I still agree with all of it. But now that we're in the moment where the fight is engaged, well, okay, now you're going to shift that system towards, you're going to shift that system away from the overindulgence in bad ideas through the application of credit money at leverage. And now we're going to delever the system. Well, when you do that, that means you have to change the structure of production. You have to change the focus of the division of labor away from investing in that shit, YouTube influencers and OnlyFans whores and all that shit, and back towards, hey, why don't you go out and fly electrical lines, because we need those guys. And how about food? And how about, clothes and the thing, and real libraries, or whatever it is that we need, right? Real knowledge, and that's where the money is going to flow. The money is going to flow. The universities are going to go back to providing degrees in things that matter. We're not going to have gender studies. We're going to have chemistry. We're not going to have, at the University of Florida, graduating 15 people with a chemistry degree every year, or in my case, the year I graduated, 5 at the University of Florida. That summer, we graduated 5 people with a degree in chemistry. I know, because they were all in my PChem 2 class that summer. Okay? Physical chemistry, second semester physical chemistry. There's only 5 of us in the fucking class. There were more graduate students in the entry level, graduate level, quantum mechanics class than there were in PChem that year in PChem 2. We need 25 people in that classroom. Yeah, granted, it was a summer bubble. It was 5 at the University of Florida. Okay, how many liberal arts degrees did we graduate that year? That's a lot fucking more. Because I can tell you that, Lee Hall which is the chemistry building, was, a morgue during the summer, but Turlington, right across the street, which is the home of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, where the English department was, and all the rest of it, the place was humming. I had to walk past it to get to Lee Hall every day. So that's the investment we're going to be doing. And I think that's, and if we shift that, you cannot going to be able to stop that. And we can change that. And the challenge for the Trump administration that's incoming, if they're allowed to take power, is going to be changing that in a durable way, in a generational and durable way, that will then bring the investment capital that was sent overseas during the ascendancy of globalism and bring it back home during the age of re-regionalization or mercantilism, as my friend Vince Alanchi would put it. And I think that's what that's what we should be demanding. I think we can get that. I think that's what we demanded at the election. And I think that's what Trump wants to give us. And if you look at his cabinet, it's pretty clear that's what he wants to do. Now, we can get into the specifics on what's good and bad about the cabinet. I'm happy to do that. But, just in general, the cabinet is designed to fuck up the managerial state domestically. And, Trump can handle foreign policy because he knows what he wants to do anyway. So.
Hey, Bitcoiners, invest in Bitcoin with confidence. Why do I recommend River? River is the best place to build your Bitcoin wealth, and they offer 0 fee on recurring buys. Proven full reserve custody. Earn 3.8% interest on cash paid in Bitcoin. Put your cash to work and earn Bitcoin. Cash is FDIC insured, no hidden fees or minimums, and withdraw your cash at any time. River makes it simple and secure to save your wealth in Bitcoin. Get $100 when you sign up and buy Bitcoin on River at river.com/matrix. Yeah, I love hearing what you're thinking. Lot to unpack there. Mm-hmm. Some things, I think the overarching thing that I kind of want to probably get to, even if we deviate, is capital flows. This idea of how important capital flows are. Maybe we can expand and elaborate on that, and how that fits maybe into the greater central banking war.
Yeah.
But a few things to note there. I mean, you mentioned at dinner, you mentioned a little bit while you were talking there about maybe Trump and Biden cut a deal. Even if we
Mhm.
just hypothesize, I wonder what that looked like and how that came together.
Mhm.
I do have my sort of doomer outlook on where this could all go. Um, and we can get into that if you want. I look at something like Mark Andreessen though, because it is a very exciting. I do see this like we have like these three sort of ways we can go. Things kind of Trump does is not effective at everything he tries to do, and everything just gets muted down and watered down. We have Trump, or and when I say Trump here, I just mean sort of the movement. I'm not
Mhm.
looking at the person, but sort of
Right.
they get a lot done here. All these people get a lot done. We have a lot of change, and we come out of the fourth turning, and we turn the corner, and it's America the Great again. And the third is sort of my doomer. This is all a big pendulum swing, and to rope us into a whole bunch of evil stuff, and
Mhm.
just delivered in a different vehicle. Um, but Mark Andreessen and sort of these people, I mean, different than Musk. I mean, these people are coming out after the tide has changed and revealing a lot of stuff that it's like, hey, this would have been really nice if you told us this before. And it kind of paints them in a cowardly light, but I don't know. I'm not in their shoes
Sure.
in that kind of position. I don't know what kind of pressure they were in before, and what kind of cage box they were threatened with.
Well, he actually speaks about that directly in the Rogan podcast when he was on the board at Facebook. He's like, I mean, it was interesting to me for him to hear that, for me to hear that from him. He's like, look, at the end of the day, like we were being threatened as much as anybody else was, and one of the things that I noted about Twitter, for example, at one point, I stopped getting angry with Jack Dorsey, for example, because I thought it was pretty obvious that Dorsey was kind of a captured pawn. So as Twitter got worse and worse and worse, and was being used to enforce the censorship and everything else, and that we would then get angry with Jack Dorsey because Jack Dorsey was nominally in charge. He was the CEO. That's who we're supposed to vent our spleen at. Where Jack is a captured pawn. The board are the ones making him do this shit, and the government regulators behind the scenes are pushing on the board. The board's pushing on Dorsey, and Dorsey then gets to be the
Mhm.
bad guy, and he becomes a scapegoat for all of our anger, and we're not thinking through the entire process. Well, that model is everywhere,
Mhm.
right? So, at a certain point, when you're being threatened with, the extreme levels of sanctions that we've seen Alex Jones go through, that Gab has gone through, that so many people have gone through, and then hundreds of injuries, like dozens of people, you know, dozens, if not hundreds of people that were hit with, similar levels of sanctions and that you don't hear about. Like Kalen Long was on my podcast. We were talking about it. Like they went after Melania Trump. They debanked Melania and Barron Trump. Okay. These people don't fucking give a shit, and, they don't care. And, they'll do anything. And at a certain point, you have to make the decision. Or we have a company, we have fiduciary requirements, we have this, we have that. And so, you know, it was the same argument I made about Patreon. Like I remember thinking about Patreon. I know so many people who and it became obvious to me that when I started thinking about Jack Dorsey that way is because I first started thinking about Patreon this way. Because I had so many people who were like, Tom, I really love when we were struggling, had 800 patrons or whatever, and we're trying to get new people. I'm like, well, if you just like it gave me a subscribe star, or can I give you Bitcoin, or can I send you a check? I'm like, yeah, you'll send me the first check, and then I have to check, then I have to chase you down for the second check, and then the third check. I'm like, fuck that noise. Sign up on Patreon for Christ's sake. No, but I'm boycotting Patreon because they're evil, because they they got rid of Sargon of Akkad and Jordan Peterson. I'm like, Patreon is a company that makes $5 million a year. They have 40 employees. If George Soros says, get rid of fucking Jordan Peterson or you don't have a bank account, guess what? Jordan Peterson goes bye-bye. And now Patreon gets to be the bad guy. So I'm like, no, sorry. Patreon has always treated me very well, never gave me any trouble, never had any problem, never had any problems with it, and neither can you. And what's the big deal? They take 5% of my revenue. So you sign up for a year. If you sign up for the year, you get 15% off. So it's 15%. So you're paying them 60 cents a month minus 15%. So you're paying them 50 cents a month. So for couch money, for $6, your $6 went to support Patreon. You really, what's more important to you? I have a platform that you feel strongly about, or you get Patreon $6 Did you pay your taxes last year? You fucking hypocrite. Yeah, you did. And you paid a fuckload more than $6 to the government, who then bombed brown people all over the world, or did this, or debanked this guy, or some other goddamn thing that did with your money, or, ran a fucking pedophile ring. Right? But you're gonna take a stand against Patreon and the $6. Like, fuck off. Like, I literally, after a while, I started sending that email back to people. I'm like, no, fuck off. I don't want your money that bad. If you're gonna purity spiral that bad over $6 have a nice day. I don't need you as a patron. If you can't see the bigger picture, I don't need your freaking money. I'll go find business somewhere else. And I still get this every once in a while. Like, people still give me like, no, fuck off. I don't care. I don't even respond. But it's the same kind of thing. And this is part of the problem that we're having across, I think, now the entire libertarian space, because now they don't know how to win. They're winning. Like, they're winning. Dude, I'm serious. Like, I'm talking to people every day who are getting calls by the transition team to go and do the thing, to go become a part of the transition, to get in there and start fixing shit. And I'm like, and they're asking me, should I do this? Or should I don't know. Would you? If I got called, would I go? Most likely. I don't think I'm going to get called, because I think I'm more valuable doing this right here than in any other context. I mean, unless they really want to clean up the freaking metal coating industry. Right. But, it's that kind of thing. I mean, if you think of your skill set, at this point, my skill set is clearly to continue to do exactly what I'm doing right now. And so I'm okay with, if I'm not that I put my name in the ring, or if it's something but it's not like these people don't know who I am. So I think it's a good thing, and so, I mean, at this point, I'm like, we have to be really careful about, how we win, and we should be happy to win, and we should take the win, and we should stop being miserable because losing is comfortable. There's a lot of people in the commentary space who are really comfortable with losing, because losing defines who they are. It makes it easy to be critics without taking any responsibility for that which they critique. I have come to have zero patience for that whatsoever. Like, I have less than zero patience for that. Like, we're here to win. Are we going to win? Do you want to win? How do you want to win? I like to win. You just want to lose so that you can keep your current business. I built my business on the idea that I'm going to tell you the truth, and fuck whether and fuck everything else. And if I think we're winning, I'll tell you we're winning. If I think we're losing, I'll tell you we're losing. And I think we're winning right now. But there's still a lot of work to be done to get it all done. So I'm not sure that I actually answered the question and didn't just go off on a fucking tangent.
That was awesome. So, I love the tangents, by the way, even if it was. So how, what do you think the likelihood of Trump not taking office on January 20th is? So the other way is, how certain are you that he's going to take office on the 20th? And I guess
I'm not certain.
Right.
Okay, so I'm gonna lay you out a scenario. I did Tommy's podcast this afternoon. I laid it out for him, and I laid it out in the previous podcast I think I did with Alex Craner and Crypto Rich a couple of weeks ago. This thing with Biden and the attackums and the escalatory framework that we now find ourselves in over Ukraine, and now we can add Syria and Aleppo into the mix, is the following. Does anybody really believe that Joe Biden issued that attack, that order that allowed Ukraine to throw ATACMS missiles into Russia? No, they clearly didn't. It was an unsourced rumor that came from the New York Times, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the CIA and MI6. Fuck off. If you disagree with anything I just said, turn the podcast off because nothing I'm going to say for the rest of the night is going to resonate with you. You're fucked in the head and you need fucking therapy. Okay, that's just cope. And I don't think you have a whole lot of Rachel Maddow fans, Cedric. So I'm not really worried about telling people to fuck off. Now, he didn't give that order, but that order goes out late on a Saturday night. By Monday morning, I'm hearing noises about, hey, let's 25th Amendment out Joe Biden because he's clearly insane and not capable of being president anymore. Now here's the hook. And I tweeted this out that morning. I said, "Oh, this is the playbook. So you go there. Now he's unfit to be president because he unnecessarily escalated the war against Russia. So now you can get Kamala Harris and 2/3 of the cabinet. You keep Congress in session, turbo appointing all these freaking judges, the vacant positions in the federal judiciary. Why? To keep the process running so that Congress isn't adjourned, so you can see if you can get to the escalatory moment where they can then blame it all on Joe Biden. And he just pardoned Hunter Biden. Oh, by the way, so now Joe's job is done. So now, and like you said, we theorized, and it was literally at that dinner when the first idea, it was first put into our heads that Trump and Biden might have made a deal, because it was one of the people who we had dinner with that night came back from New York that morning and was talking about this stuff and put the idea in our heads, and I threw it out there into the podcast space to, look brilliant, but I don't fucking care. I'm just like, hey, by the way, this could be on the thing, right? On the table. Turns out, I think we're right. But your 25th Amendment Biden now to put Kamala Harris in place, right? Now, that's in and of itself, that is a difficult process. So you have to have an unacceptable escalatory environment. You're going to probably have to have Joe one more time do something really dumb in order to set the stage for this. I'm just thinking about it now. But the goal is, and I think this is I think they need to try and stop Trump from coming to power. How would you do so? Well, you do so by getting us to the brink of World War III with the Russians. And then how do you get there if Putin has decided he's not going to take the bait? Well, then you clearly have to stage a false flag. Now, I know. I think my internet, my connection may be a little unstable for a mintle. So did you miss anything of that?
I don't think I missed anything, but it's a little unstable, but I don't think I missed anything there.
Okay, good. Okay, so just to reiterate that in order to get, if Putin's not going to take the bait and escalate in such a way that you can get the just war framework, which is what they've always been working for, so you 25th Amendment out Biden to install Kamala Harris as president, who then, after a false flag operation where, I don't know, where you fake a nuke, not fake, but you actually nuke a bunch of civilians and blame it on Putin. This has never happened before. And then you get, sock puppet fucking Harris as commander in chief of the military now to declare war on Russia and declare an Article 5 intervention via NATO. Bob's your uncle. You have World War III, and then they can do whatever they want at that point. And then, they can do what Zelensky did. When this was clearly what they did with Zelensky, which is we're at war, we're canceling the election, we're not going to, or we can't have Trump come to power because Trump works for Russia and he wants to end this war and blah, 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 blah. And that's unacceptable. And then, they just like flood the zone with a whole bunch of bullshit about, well, we're not going to seat these electors and we're going to play that game. And, they're going to do all of this shit until they get to what I think would be a Christmas coup against the American government, similar to 1913, where, we got the 16th Amendment, the 17th Amendment, and the Federal Reserve Act all passed during an extended session of Congress over Christmas. Now, when I said this, I was talking about this before the Thanksgiving weekend, and I said I fully expect there to be an escalation over Thanksgiving weekend while everybody's, in a carb and tryptophan coma, and no one's watching. They moved the fucking markets on Friday. Somehow nothing has changed in the world, but somehow somebody decided that the entire belly of the US yield curve was 9 basis points mispriced to the upside in order to paint the tape to ensure that the dollar didn't break, the dollar index didn't close above a particular technical level. Okay. The dollar index was on target to close above 106.62, which would have been a big breakout to the upside. Technically, we closed at 105.74. We had the Japanese yen was pushed down. The British pound was pushed up. Like, a lot of shit happened on Friday, and the bond markets were the belly of the yield curve from the 2 out to the 7 or even the 10, all bid hard on Friday when our fucking markets are closed. Who's buying all these US treasuries to move the bond markets that much? And you can move them a lot when there's no friggin' when the US markets are closed and you can get, you know what I mean? Like, so money moved over this weekend in order to paint the tape on the monthly close, which is November. Friday was the November close. Very important to understand that, you're painting the tape to set up this December's open. And believe me, I don't even need to do the believe me look at this point. Like, guys, this is the way this shit works. Okay. I watch this shit every freaking day. Like, it's clear. I can see the interventions, as far as the eyes I can see at this point, once you have eyes to look for it. And it's timed with, oh, look, we just opened up a new front for the Russians to deal with in Syria, which they've been prepping for a couple of weeks now, with the Israelis bombing various positions inside Syria and taking out the leadership of Hezbollah and IRGC generals and this guy and that guy, and trying to paralyze Iran and their proxy network to leave Syria kind of, without any defenders. So, and then of course at that moment when they're trying to push the Russians into escalating, blah 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 blah. So you can see how, all of this is kind of happening all at one time. That's the kind of framework for all of this. So what's going to happen on Monday night or Tuesday or Wednesday of this week as we get into, the 2 weeks before the next Federal Reserve meeting? Like, this is what's going on here. This is all really important shit. So, they need to get this done, and Putin's refusing to take the bait. He comes out in the speech and says that Trump's been treated inhumanely, and that and that basically the entire American political system and media complex and European media complex, and they're all, he was blaming all of them. Like, it was crazy. It was actually really nice to see him say that, but because it's true, and he's clearly signaling to everyone that, look, we don't need to be doing this. We don't need to have a war. Somebody else wants this. Trump doesn't want it. The American people don't want it. We don't want it. Zelensky goes on Fox News and says, hey, well, we can have a ceasefire, which, they just did a ceasefire the other day with the Israelis, who then, violated 18 ways from Sunday within 72 hours, as they always do. Like, so, like, we can have a ceasefire, but, Russia has to, they can have but we have to be in NATO, and Russia can have the territory they've taken. But, we're going to put NATO, put the rest of Ukraine into NATO so that we can take it back later. He hasn't really offered anything. Like, so yeah, so Putin's going to take that deal? No, of course it's a non-starter. Like, so it's and you can feel the histrionics coming from France and from the UK in particular, not necessarily Germany. Germany's in a kind of political flux at this point because the government has fallen, right? And they're going for snap elections, and there's a lot of political wrangling there. I can do half an hour on fucking Germany alone, but understand that it's the French bond markets. So people are finally starting to make a big deal, but the French bond markets are now a problem. The British bond markets are clearly a fucking problem. And money is continuing to flow into Germany within the European Union because it's the only relatively safe haven that they've got left, which is, and they're still getting help from Janet Yellen over Treasury. So, no, we're not out of the woods yet. We got 50 fucking days here, and these people are going to try and, you know, they're going to try and flip the game board in the next 50 days. So, you know, I'm optimistic that if we can get to January 21st, that things will start to change. Then, you know, we played all this stuff out, and notice how Trump finally dropped Kash Patel as the nominee for FBI director. Why did he do that? Why did he wait this long for it? Why? He wasn't even going to do anything with it, but they escalated. So then he has to grab the Overton window away from the British and, you know, the Obama shitbags trying to say, "Oh, look, see, Russia's weak, and we can do this, and we can strike," you know, and you know, it's a classic thing. What Trump was trying to do with Kash Patel was to change the narrative away from Russia's weak because, and they're overextended because now they've opened up the second front in Syria that they have to deal with. So interesting how he used that, I think. Yeah, no, it's in some ways it's all good. And then just we have to get these people off the game board. And Trump taking office is that moment, because so much changes the minute he's inaugurated. Because then he signs the executive order to audit like half the fucking federal government and shuts the fucking flow of money right down, because that's what's coming. And I'm the only, I didn't want to talk about this, and I for a couple of weeks now, but I've known what the plan was for a couple of weeks until Marsha Blackburn like said it the other day. I'm like, well, fuck it. The senator from Tennessee is like openly talking about it, then I get to talk about it. But it's clear this is what they're going to do. They're going to audit all the NGOs, all the grants, and all the university grants, and all of this, all that shit that I was talking about at dinner that night. I said, yeah, they're going to just audit it all. And when these departments are under audit, guess what? They don't get any fucking money. Congress appropriates, and the executive delegates. And if the executive branch doesn't want to spend the money that Congress has appropriated, the executive branch doesn't have to spend the money. So this is existential for a lot of people. And so what's their, I mean, unless I'm wrong about this, but I don't think I am. I mean, Vivek has all but said this is what they're going to do. Marsha Blackburn has now openly said it. Everybody in Washington knows what's coming. They're all acting as if they know what's coming. And so that's why it's like, you know, it's a mess. And so now we get into global capital flow, and it's very obvious that the United States cuts $2 trillion worth of spending like fucking overnight. That's going to fundamentally alter the flow of dollars. And then you can understand why they're trying to paint the tape on keeping the dollar from exploding to the upside, why they're trying to push bond yields down, yada, yada, yada. Like there's a deflationary wave coming here that very few people are thinking in terms of. And the inflationistas have got a big problem on their hands in terms of their thesis, because they just are wedded to this idea that we can't change anything. And as far as I'm concerned, Cedric, that is fucking learned helplessness. I don't buy it. That's not what we voted for. And that's not what this group of people that Trump assembled around him wants to implement. I mean, I just don't see it. I see them coming in like a fucking bulldozer, because it's what has to happen in order, you know, to go forward. And so you're going to have that. Fed's going to continue to roll treasuries off the balance sheet. They're not going to be in there bidding. So that's putting upward pressure on bond yields. Yellen's out there trying to spend more money than they have in order to try and keep bond yields. And it's trying to manipulate the yield curve by issuing short term and restricting the supply of long term. The world is biblically short dollars, and they need dollar collateral. And so that's putting a bit under the long end of the yield curve. And Powell, I think, is going to cut interest rates. and I think he's going to cut hard. I said it before the election. I said I expect Powell to cut harder under Trump than he would have under Kamala Harris, because he has to restore a normal yield curve. And you can do it in two ways. You can allow the bear steepener trade, keep interest rates, keep the Federal Reserve, keep the Fed funds rate at 4.5%, but let the long end of the curve go to 6, or you can keep the long end of the curve between 4 and 4.5 and cut down to 3. Then now you have buy-in from the banking industry, because now the big banks can lend against a 210 spread, a positive 210 spread, and that unfucks the flow of credit. And you can cut domestic spending, well, government spending, allow that money to circulate through the economy again, and unfuck the credit markets at the same time. And you have this kind of ugly dance between credit deflation and pushing upwards on commodity prices. That's what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to be a kind of classic, stagflationary environment in that respect for a little while the labor market uncorks itself, and we have a shift away from higher order goods and an overinvestment in, purple hair dye and kanji tattoos, and building iron mines and repairing the roads. You know what I mean? Like, and the infrastructure and everything else that needs to be done, and reopening the pipelines and all of that. There's a lot to be done there, and that's an investment cycle that's going to take 20 years. And but it's got to be done in such a way it's politically durable, such that the Democrats don't just come back to power in 4 years. So what you've seen, so if we get through these next 50 days, that's the last point. I'll let you go back to. If we get through these next 50 days and we get into the Trump administration, right, then they will shift into the same kind of vandalistic mode that they shifted into after Brexit. Extend and pretend, destroy the economy, try and destroy the United States, the same way they destroyed the UK, to get people to eventually vote against that which they voted for, and turn their hope into the villain, right? Turn the hero, Brexit, into the villain, the Tories, who didn't give us what we asked for, and then make Brexit the reason why we're all poor. When that's not the reason the Britons are poor. The reason the Britons are poor is because the Bank of England, along with the Biden administration, enforced a 25% devaluation of the pound versus the euro, and created massive inflation and a loss of purchasing power, and then at the same time also cut the UK off from foreign investment. So you destroyed the pound, you destroyed the ability for them to trade with their best trading partners, and you didn't allow anybody to come in and invest in the country. And so Brexit has been nothing but a nightmare for Britain, and that was all designed, and it was designed in Brussels, and it was designed in Berlin, and it was designed in Paris, and it was designed in DC. It was designed by Davos, what I call Davos. And, now we have Keir Starmer destroying what's left of the country. Well, they're going to try to do the same thing to the United States if Trump gets into power. They're going to try and extend and pretend and all of that, so that we all wind up hating Trump, so that 4 years from now, we get President AOC, who destroys the country again. It's not going to work, but that's their plan.
Speaking of sort of plans, and I still want to analyze these next 50 days. Mm-hmm. And, I love hearing the geopolitics, and we're going to get back to it. We're going to get back to capital flows, but just a little bit of domestic affairs here. Do you think, sure. I kind of saw January 6th, and I didn't go down the rabbit hole, but from afar, it looked to me like a lot of projection and predictive programming. Yes. So do you see something, either, it doesn't have to be on, the anniversary, it doesn't have to be on January 6th, but do you see sort of social unrest and riots, and what kind of the temperature of the country in terms of maybe now we have a different set of uncomfortable wolves? Or whatever.
How much money? I guess the question you're really asking is, how much money does Soros and company have to rent the flash mob, as Mike Benz would put it?
Sure, and to keep it the fire burning.
Right, and keep it going. I think they're trying really hard, and I think they're failing miserably. I think they're trying really hard to get this engine restarted. But look at Cenk Uygur, look at Anna Kasparian, look at some of these people, look at even Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski having to go to Mar-a-Lago and kiss the ring. Look at, like Rachel Maddow doesn't look at this point like she's rallying the troops. She just looks like a crazy woman. Right. And a lot of the spell has been dispelled. Not this illusion that these people were under. I think the spell has been broken. And again, and the reason is because the kids who have to inherit this shit have all turned voting age. I've said this in a couple of recent podcasts, and I'll say it again. I have a friend of mine who's been doing substitute teaching in the Alachua County school system, 8th grade this year. And he's like, dude, something has fundamentally shifted. And he texts me all the time. He's like, dude, I wake up every morning, text from this guy, whatever he's popped into his head. Great. I'm not disparaging him. But the thing is, the day after the election, I've never seen an 8th grader walking around math in Alachua County schools. They're all wearing red hats. They're all wearing MAGA hats. They're all turning into meme hordes overnight. Okay. It's there. It's uncovering. One of the things I was talking to Tommy Kerrigan about this afternoon was that what this has done is it's uncorked all of these people who were afraid to say that they were, because of social pressure purposes, were afraid to say that they voted for Trump or that they supported Trump or that they thought the country was on the wrong path or, they really didn't want trannies in the women's bathrooms and all this other stuff. They didn't want any of that. Now, they found out there's a whole lot more people out there than they thought there were that were like them. And I think that, like it or not, and I am not in any way, matter, shape, or form passing judgment on anyone. I want you to, I mean this sincerely when I say this. Look, man, at the end of the day, everybody's got the mortgage and the car payments and the 2 kids and the house in suburbia and everything else, and they've got to protect what they've got to protect. The bureaucrats are trying to protect their fiefdoms within the governmental system and within these NGOs and everything else. I get that. You also have a lot of people who just go along and get along because they don't have the ability to fundamentally change anything until the signal's been given that yes, things can fundamentally change. And so, they're not going to rock the boat. They're like Mark Andreessen, like you said earlier, like, yeah, it would have been nice to know that you were on our side 3 years ago, dude. It would have been nice to know that. But he couldn't come out and do so because if he did, then Facebook gets debanked. Or whatever, or his funds get debanked, or his friends get debanked, or whatever. It's like there was a sincere level of suppression at every level happening behind the scenes. I can even take it one step farther. I mean, I'm not known to be a guy who minces words very much, but even I fucking put limits on what I was willing to talk about. Because at the end of the day, yeah, if they want to take me out, they can take me out tomorrow. But, between myself and Dexter White, we've made it abundantly clear, like, just don't make it easy for them. So certain things we just don't talk about in the terms that some people would like us to talk about. Why? Because, dude, I don't want to make it easy for them to take my fucking life away from me. Would you like me to continue doing this a year from now? Would you like to live to fight till the day when, we can turn that corner and then I can uncork the last 10% of whatever it is that's on my head? And I'm saying half of that stuff I'm still not going to talk about in public because, dude, it's just fucking rude. Like I've made it abundantly clear, who I actually, no, I'm not going to do so. Like there's private me, there's public me. Those two things are different people, and they should be different people. So, that's the way this stuff works. So and if and I'm willing to cop to that. You can imagine the pressure on the average person is insane, and they're not going to do so because they got to run their business. And then when the day comes that the pressure's lifted, well, then they can, like, they can put the MAGA hat on from behind that they had stashed under the counter, underneath their cash register, their point of service little module, their little stripe thing. Like, and they pull it out, and they, next day you see it, you go to the tire shop, or whatever, the car maintenance guy, and he's got a MAGA hat on when he didn't have one on last week. Because now the blue hairs have been defanged. Moving on. And we should celebrate that. And we shouldn't feel bad that they didn't have the courage previously. No, actually, that was the rational response to all this. It actually proves that they're normal, rational people making smart decisions about their personal, gig. And that was my whole rant about comfortable wolves. I'm like, at a certain point, yeah, these people were uncomfortable, but they couldn't be, but they had a little too much to lose. They had a little too much comfort. Fine. Get them to the point where you take everything away from them, where now their children, now we're talking about, well, they can cut my boy's dick off because without telling me, because he kind of thought that it would be cool because, he's 8 and 8-year-olds say shit. Like, dude, when I was 10, I used to go around the house like Roddy McDowell from the Planet of the Apes, for fuck's sake, because it was my favorite fucking movie. Like, did I identify as a monkey? No, I didn't. But for a few weeks, I wanted to be Cornelius, for fuck's sake. Like, get over yourself. I was 10. I don't want hair transplants. I already have enough hair on my back. I don't need more. Like, come on. This is dumb.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I love it. I mean,
all right. Maybe that's oversharing. I don't know.
No, that was great, and I appreciate it. People. I do want to appreciate sort of the battle of the public and the private self. And, I don't even think that's sort of censoring yourself. I mean, just you're going to be more intimate with people and your friends and your closer people that you spend more time with and reveal more with. But I want to still dwelling on the next 50 days.
Yeah.
Are there going to be more assassination attempts? Is that card played and done? And I'm not even going to get into, but
I don't think Trump's going to put himself in the position. I think it's been very clear since the election that he hasn't put himself out in public on purpose. Like he's he's in Mar-a-Lago for a fucking reason. Everybody's coming to Don Trump-Leone, right? And he's not going out. That's where he has, security. And I guess he feels he's secure there. Can they take him out? Sure, they could bomb fucking Mar-a-Lago. Like, okay, like that's the wrong kind of power, expression of power. You know what I mean? Like Trump at that point is irrelevant. Like, Trump's just a figurehead at this point. So now you make him into a martyr, and now he's even more powerful than he was before. Now he's Obi-Wan, now he's Obi-Wan Kenobi, right? So no, I don't think that. I don't think that an assassination attempt is really what's on the table. If they're going to go after him, they'll go after him the first 100 days of his presidency, where he has to go out and do, he has to go and meet with people, and he has to, try and negotiate the end of the wars and all the rest of the stuff. And, it's a very dangerous and chaotic. It's going to be a very dangerous and chaotic time. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything here, folks. It's going to be fucking ugly because these people are not going to go away. But at the same time, for the first time, I think in every one of these cycles that we've been through, we have a critical mass of people around the world who know who the bad guys are. Right. In the past, they've always operated from the shadows. They've always controlled the newspapers. One of the points that Andreessen made was that, look, the fucking newspaper industry has always been nothing but a propaganda engine, right? I mean, it's like the first newspaper was published by the Vatican, for Christ's sake, to go after their political opponents. Like, it's a great around the world, right? So, this is not anything that's going to be, it's not going to, nothing's changed. Actually, what Andreessen was saying was really interesting. Was that, look, we're going to get to a point where information that's real is going to be on a blockchain and verified, and stuff that's not real is going to be entertainment. And I think that it was a really interesting point. And it's something I kind of thought through at some point. I've always thought about the blockchain for its power to preserve free speech, right? So if you want to say whatever you want to say, great, it's on the blockchain. There we are. Voting, shit like that. Like, these are obvious use cases to use blockchain to verify information, right? Blockchain-based news, that's true. It's an interesting idea. And I'm okay with it. I don't know how it's going to, I'm okay with watching the technology evolve to the point where it can do, it can do that kind of thing. And then that takes away, for the first time, that takes away their power to seed mis and disinformation into the zeitgeist in such a way that we can, that we can't, we can't function, right? Because that's where their power really lies. It lies in their ability to lie at scale and then propagate that lie through their controlling of the channels in which information is dispensed. Again, going back to the concept of the wire, I've talked about multiple articles and really think about the old HBO television show of that same name. That's the metaphor. That's the metaphor that the wire, in a police context, but that's what the wire was about. Now you really think, you take it one step further. You make the wire something that cannot disseminate untruths. That changes the way humanity interacts with information at a level, in a way that is truly durable. Wow. That depowers these shitbag fucking people. Or like I call them TFPs, these fucking people, in a way that should scare the shit out of them, because what they, of course, wanted to do was always control the wire, then control the blockchain, and then by extension, continue to control information. Right? So, and create, create whatever matrix they wanted. So,
hey, Bitcoiners, get your sats off your exchange now. This is not a drill. Thea is the world's simplest Bitcoin self-custody solution. With their module multi-sig vault, you decide how to hold your keys. Thea is working day in and day out to bring you the most intuitive Bitcoin self-custody solution, regardless of how much you own or what your storage goals are. And they support your favorite hardware. Download Thea now for hassle-free Bitcoin self-custody at thea.us/Cedric. That's thea.us/CEDRIC. Yeah, I mean, I kind of think, a lot of the technology we're seeing now in terms of sort of maybe blockchain is like with Amazon in the 90s. I mean, a lot of people thought Jeff was going after bookstores, and then Jeff knew he was going after all of retail, but even Jeff didn't know he was going after cloud computing. Yes. Things evolve. I don't think any of the, I don't know if Bitcoin is going to be, I like the idea of inscriptions. I like the idea of, you've said it on this show, lies are expensive. The truth sells itself. Bitcoin is the truth. And I believe Bitcoin is a truth machine. I don't know if it's built, I think it's built for money and monetary transactions, but I like the idea of inscriptions. I don't think any chain Mark Andreessen's involved in is going to be the chain of truth, but there will be maybe things in the future we can't see now, and maybe we will be able to inscribe truth into some form of a chain that is not corruptible. Getting back to sort of maybe
no, I think no, I agree. I think it's a very important point. And every time I've ever said, hey, Bitcoin maxis, hold your water about where we think Bitcoin is going or what it's capable of. We don't know where the
We don't
technology is
know.
going.
Yeah.
And that's all. And that's
Yep.
my sum total of my argument against being a Bitcoin maxi. That's it. It has nothing to do with, I hate Bitcoin. I prefer gold. I don't prefer anything. I'm agnostic on this subject. I just know
Yeah,
that
no, you just want the best tool.
I think it's a very interesting tool. I think it's a great tool, and I want to
Right.
see it. And I want to
Right.
see it do it. I want to see Bitcoin succeed at that which it is best at succeeding at, and nothing more. Because
And
the
I don't
minute you
even know if
try,
we'll get 100% of that. That remains to be seen. Because it's technology, it's software, it's still forming. We
yep,
don't know when pencils are going to be put down,
yeah,
and what's going to come of it, both intended and unintended consequences and limitations and
yes,
limiting factors. But it'll
we
be
just
very interesting.
it'll be a reflection of what we want, and
And what we put
that's
into it,
and what we put
and
into
the
it.
apathy of not what's not put into it, maybe.
Yeah,
Um,
all those things are fair, and
yeah.
so it's going to be a mixture of those things, and that's why I refuse to spurg out
Right.
about it.
And just like the internet is not 100% of what we'd hoped it would be,
Yep.
but the internet is still evolving, and so we'll see. Maybe we'll get a true internet of money, which is decentralized and not corruptible, and peer to peer.
That that would be awesome. And if it happens, I hope I live long enough to see it.
Yeah, I think it'll happen. I don't know if we'll live long enough to see all of that, but
Right.
we'll be on the journey. What talking about limiting factors? Do you
Mm.
think, I wonder, my doomer attitude is okay, maybe we get hit with a recession or depression and Trump is the better vehicle for that.
Mhm.
And that's sort of my doomer black pilled. But let's say just even maybe not black pilled, do they try to stick him with a recession or not even stick him like one was coming and it was like better on him than our team, whatever, however you want to frame it. What I'm really getting at is it possible that a major depression or
Mm.
depression like event, a little greater than a recession, is coming our way? You mentioned before, like we're going to be a lot of cuts to maybe government spending, maybe 2 trillion. I mean, a lot, and which can cause both, like you were saying, deflationary environment, but maybe recession like pressure, but also maybe, social unrest and unhappiness with, family members and all these government employees getting the axe when they had these cushy jobs, maybe cushy being maybe like from the point of view of like not as a little different than the private sector is what I'm trying to point out
Well,
there.
what's interesting about this is, and Vivek has talked about this. He's talked about how we can make the transition necessary and make it as smooth as possible. He's clearly thought about the mechanisms by which we can get these things paid for and dealt with and off the government's books in terms of for future liabilities. He's thinking purely in terms of like balance sheet management, which is the right way of thinking about it. By the way, and it may cost us a lot of money to put these people out of work and get them retrained and get them moved into the private sector. And there's going to be an 18-month or 2-year period where we're going to have to pay for a lot of shit, and that we're not, but that doesn't mean that but that also means that we're not paying for them for the next 30 years. So let's put it this way. Think about it in terms of, you're managing the the balance sheet of a company or of a city or whatever, and you've got to pay. You hire an employee under these rules, and they're going to get 20 years in, retire at from the government job. Say they got the job at 30, they retire at 50. Now you're going to pay for them on a pension and benefits and health insurance and this and that for 25 years or 30 years after that, right? Now, the Davosian model would be to shorten everybody's lifespan so that you only have to pay 20 years. Well, what if you just
Hmm.
say, hey, how about we fire you? Okay. And we're not going to pay your pension because you actually didn't do anything. And we have good causes to reasons as to why we're not going to pay you. But we're going to give you a 2-year severance. Go find a new job. 2 years up front or 30. You can pay me now. You can pay me later. Like if you think of it in those terms, That's actually from an investor's perspective, one that wants to invest in the United States durably for the long term. If I was an investor and I was going to, well, if I'm going to, or I'm going to, I want to put money into a new factory in the United States, and all the money handling rules have changed, such that I'm not just looking at the way things are now, are then going to be, are going to be perpetuated for the next 30 years. But it's going to be bad for 2 years. And during this investment cycle, this is when I can put the money into the country, knowing full well that once these people are done, I'm going to have built, once these people are off their quote unquote UBI for 2 years, which is basically severance pay. And I'm just throwing out an idea here. I don't know that it's, it has to be a year, 2 years, whatever the hell it is. It doesn't matter. I know as an investor, I'm not paying another 28 years worth of unfunded liabilities on these people. They're off the books. So now all of a sudden the unfunded liabilities in the United States go from, I don't know, $200 trillion to $180 trillion. Say we save $20 trillion in unfunded liabilities this way in future government employee payouts. That's burden on Medicare, burden on Social Security, blah, 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 or excess burden on Social Security because now all of a sudden these people aren't paying the same, yada, whatever it is. Let's not talk about like the specifics of what I'm getting at here. I'm just like, you understand that it's not going to be that same set of liabilities that we had previously. We're going to cut those off. Now you're a foreign investor. And now you're, a CEO of a company here in the United States that was thinking about, building another plant, I don't know, in fucking Argentina. And you can go, hey, no, if we build it here, that makes more sense. That's a durable thing because once I'm done building the new plant, which will take me 2 years, these people will be coming off their severance. They've got skills. Hopefully they'll have retrained themselves and get ready for the next phase of their career. And we can employ them. And they'll be right there waiting to re-enter the productive workforce as opposed to the UBI we're currently paying them in running their stupid government fucking job where all they do is push paper around and nothing else. Because these people are UBI. We already have UBI in the United States. It's everywhere. It's every HR department. It's every legal department. It's every this department. It's every compliance department. It's every environmental compliance department. It's every fucking government functionary that runs the goddamn agency that checks up on the compliance department of every fucking company. This shit's everywhere. Now you have to ask yourself, we spend all this money, we generate $27 trillion worth of spending every year and call it GDP, but how much of it is actually moving money or how much of it is actually generating wealth? Is that $27 trillion worth of wealth generation or is that $27 trillion worth of spending? And what would happen if we spent that $27 trillion differently? Or, hey, how about we cut $2 trillion, which is the government deficit, out of that spending. And I don't know, do something productive with that money and raise the percentage of productive spending within that $25 trillion that's actually generating a lot more fucking wealth. It's that simple. And there are a lot of ways of skinning this cat. And I don't have any of that worked out. That's not my job. My job is to tell you it's possible. A guy like Vivek has already worked it out. Other guys like Russell Napier. I was reading an article about Russell Napier that was thrown in front of me, and he was talking about how the U.S. is going to get out of their fiscal problem, and he was thinking about it, and I think in a much less optimistic way, thinking that we're going to have to go to yield curve control and all this other, and I'm like, yeah, maybe. How about we cut $2 trillion, Russell, and then talk to me about what it is that the Fed has to do and what the Treasury has to do and yada yada yada. Because start thinking about outside the box and how we can fund with the leftover future unfunded liabilities of Social Security and or Medicare. When we're now talking about throwing gold out on the yield curve, we're talking about throwing our Bitcoin reserve, strategic Bitcoin reserve out on the yield curve, which is what Lutnick is talking about with Bitcoin backed loans and all this other stuff. Like this is a big deal. These are 100% collateralized loans of bearer assets on the back end. And I know the Bitcoin purists, don't want the government anywhere near their Bitcoin. And I'm like, hey, you want Bitcoin to win? You want government to see that big pile of Bitcoin that's out there as a potential savior for their fiscal asses. Now all of a sudden they can't live without Bitcoin, or they can't live without gold, and they can't live without, and I've said this before, I've called Bitcoin the bearer bond of the 21st century, because that's what it is. It's a bearer bond. That's what it is. Do you own the keys to it? You own the bearer bond. Do you present the bond? You get the money. You present the fucking. You present the hat. You present the key. You own it. And that's and there ain't better collateral than that. You drop a 100-ounce gold bar on the fucking table. News for you. That's collateral. What are you going to lend against? I want to buy that. I want to buy that property over there. Well, I want a loan. What's your collateral? This. Yeah, that'll work. Oh, do I have to convert that into some amount of U.S. treasuries first to make you happy? Fine. Here you go. Sitting in the bank account. Lend it against it. Do whatever we have to do. Like whatever, like this is the world we're going to be moving towards, as opposed to away. We've been moving away from that for the last God knows how many fucking years, and now we're going to move back towards it. And and I'm here to tell you flat out that in that world, you and I are empowered. The financial system is not, the current financial system is not empowered by that. The current financial system is empowered by selling you nothing for something, selling you a fiat dollar to get your time or your gold or your wood or your labor or your leather or your cow's milk, whatever it is. They sell you nothing that they got at a cheaper price than you're going to get tomorrow for your stuff. They use tomorrow's money to pay for yesterday's goods at today's prices. And they make the vig on the difference. And that's why the wealth is rolled up to the finance class. That is going to, that's the promise of Bitcoin. That's the promise of a hard asset money system. That's the promise of, of a fundamental change in how we operate a financial system. But that financial system is still going to be based on, moving dollars around at this point, because there's no reason for them to not move around that way. Bitcoin is better served not as a medium of exchange. And anybody who tells you, oh, Bitcoin hasn't been adopted by shit, bullcrap. I got $134.2 billion worth of U.S. treasuries and gold sitting in Tether's bank accounts in the fucking Caymans that say otherwise. Because that's what liquefies the Bitcoin trade. Bitcoin is becoming collateral. It's better served as base money in Exeter's pyramid. I've been saying this for 8 years. It's just like gold sits at the bottom of Exeter's pyramid of the monetary system, right? A little bit of gold, then currencies, then stocks, then commodities, then stocks, then derivatives, or U.S. treasuries and derivatives, like credit. You go from collateral to credit. Well, Bitcoin sits down here. Why the fuck do you want it up here as credit? Why do you want it circulating as a medium of exchange? What do you want that for? It's better served as collateral for a real monetary system based on real property rights. And then the world will create credit as it needs to, elastic money, currency necessary to liquefy the system and to allow people to express themselves within the division of labor. That's all you need. It doesn't fucking matter. If Bitcoin enters the system as fucking collateral at the bottom, you won. Take the win. Shut the fuck up. And everybody who tells you otherwise is, a fucking punter who's talking their book. I don't get it. I have it on good authority that this year's New Orleans Investor Conference, because they were there watching the panel. Actually, it was one of the men who we had dinner with. Went to New Orleans and watched the panel discussion between Peter Schiff and Larry Lepard and a couple other people. And at one point, Peter starts going off on fucking Bitcoin again. And Larry Lepard literally tells him, Peter, shut the fuck up. Go fuck yourself. You cost your clients billions of dollars. Your antipathy to Bitcoin is retarded and stupid. Literally told him to go fuck himself at the gold conference. And then, of course, Peter didn't listen. And Peter says this, of course, and you know he has Bitcoin on his fucking balance sheet.
You think Peter has Bitcoin on his balance sheet?
Of course he does. His son made him, he already admitted his son made him buy some.
Seems like they're buying gold, selling gold out the front door and buying Bitcoin out the back door.
Whatever they're doing, doesn't matter. Like I cannot stand the hypocrisy of it. I cannot stand somebody who's like, I cannot stand it when I listen to somebody literally not be willing to like, you don't have a good argument for it. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. You know, I've got some patrons that are this way, and they say some of the dumbest shit imaginable. I'm like Tether doesn't have $3 trillion on their balance sheet to liquefy the crypto trade. I'm like, that's not what Tether liquefies. Tether's market cap is $134 billion, and Tether is not the thing that's the collateral here. Bitcoin's the collateral. Tether is the liquidity agent. And as long as Tether can, and we know multiple times that there has been runs on Tether, right, where it's broken peg. That's it. Tether's going to get crushed. Blah, blah, blah. And people made runs on it the same way that Soros made a run on the Bank of England, or yada yada yada. And then, you know, to prove. And guess what? Tether ponied up the money. Multiple times this has happened. Like,
what do you make of Tether in terms of why are they so different than all the other stable coins?
Because they were blessed by the Fed. That's why
were they blessed? Were they created to be blessed, or are they just lucky to be blessed?
No, they're the biggest and the best. And whatever happened, I guess they just decided they were probably the least corrupted of all the stablecoin providers. I think at one point, was Tether a bit of a scam? Like in its early days, it probably was. Did they have all the collateral back in 2016 or 2017? Probably not. Right? But after Letitia James went after them
and had to
give them and bless them, gave them the slap
New
on the
York
wrist.
AG, like
the Southern District of New York.
Yeah, that's big.
Took them to court and gave them a slap on the wrist. Why? Because now they're under the purview of the New York Federal Reserve.
They're captured in a way.
Sure.
And playing a role or a part.
Or Wall Street and the Fed understood that we can't get rid of this thing. We don't like it, but we can't get rid of it, but we can use it strategically as an asset. We can either, now, again, I've had many a discussion with Caitlin Long about this, and she doesn't fully agree with me on this, but she's having a hard time like arguing that I'm wrong. I'm like, look, it's not that there are people within the Fed who hate crypto that are working with Elizabeth Warren to shut down the crypto industry. And there are other people within the Fed and within the banking system who have blessed it. And you can see that fight clearly in you know, and there are fiefdoms within the Fed, there are verticals within the Fed. At the end of the day, you know, never forget, Powell is many things, but ultimately he's a bureaucrat that does what he's told. And Powell was told raise interest rates, and Powell was told, you know, and probably ultimately Powell said, yeah, okay, well, we need to deal with these people. We need to get rid of all these shit bags. We can't get rid of Bitcoin. We need to have something out there that Bitcoin trades against. People clearly want the shit. How can we use it? There was a shift and remember, go back to, it was during the Trump administration when China went and kicked out all the Bitcoin miners. Remember that? Why? Well, because Bitcoin was doing what my friend John Seth said it would do, which is that Bitcoin is an organism that eats energy subsidies. China was subsidizing its energy costs to the consumer. So that's why all the Bitcoin miners were in China, because they were getting their power for 3 cents a kilowatt hour at a subsidized rate, which was causing the Chinese government to go bankrupt. Right? They were losing money left and right. So eventually she says, no, never mind. Get rid of all the Bitcoin miners. And guess who picked up all the Bitcoin miners? The United States. I literally sat there on a fucking three-way between me, Dexter White, and John Seth privately. We were talking about this shit back in 2018 when this shit was happening. We're like, oh no, all the Bitcoin mining is coming to the United States. It's all coming because we have great baseload power generation. We've got co-location everywhere. I put these ideas into the head of my a friend of mine who worked selling, in the nuclear power industry, and he's the one who like he was working literally for within the nuclear power advocacy, industry. And he went to his boss one day. He literally told him, he's like, I went to my boss and I said, I want to reach out to the Bitcoin miners. And the guy was like, whatever, go for it. And he brokered multiple deals to get co-location of Bitcoin miners at nuclear power plants around the country. So using up the excess power, sucking it up. And, like I've been at the intersection of a lot of this shit behind the scenes and just watched, really, really talented people like figure it out and then go out and do the thing. And we've picked up a lot of the Bitcoin mining because we do generate power at places around this country pretty cheaply, right? And for what purpose? Maybe because we identified then, or members of the banking sector and the strategic thinkers, the few of them that were actually left during the Obama administration, understood Bitcoin is a strategic asset. And then they were running a stealth operation underneath, while at the same time the Davosians in the Obama administration were doing their very best to choke it down, to kill it. Put Gensler into the SEC and all this other crap. Warren running around with her, her extra constitutional pressure squad. Again, I remember the name of the department. The name
Operation
of the
Choke Point, you mean?
Well, Operation Choke Point, but,
right,
Elizabeth Warren actually runs some government fucking commission or agency that is clearly unconstitutional. But it's through that thing that Andreessen mentions. I don't remember the name. It's in the Rogan interview. Well, listen to that section of that interview. It's unbelievable. That's what she's doing outside of. She's using that to put pressure on people to, to make everybody toe the line, right? So she's fucking hip deep in this shit. She's going to fucking jail for being a traitor. This one, she knows it. That's why she's out there histrionically screeching about everything. No, somebody clearly recognized the strategic potential for Bitcoin and got ahead of it. And then all you saw from the Biden administration and from Congress was, them trying to keep the uncertainty around Bitcoin as an asset class and to have no regulation, have no rules about it. That uncertainty would then keep the investment, to keep investment in it and in Bitcoin companies, in America. If you keep it in a regulatory purgatory, right, then that means that the government can change the rules at any moment, and there's no way to run a business. So, now I think I spoke to Mark. I think I chatted with Marty Bent about this the other day when I was on his show. We got into this just a little bit. So, get rid of the uncertainty, and all of a sudden you'll see all the companies, the investment take right off. So that's what guys like Andreessen and Musk and others are. That's what they all want. Putin's recognized this. This is why he recognized it very early on, and he had to fight his Ministry of Finance and his central bank who were all dragging their fucking feet all throughout like 2014, 2015, 2016. And he just finally just got angry and just like decreed from on high, fuck off, give me something by, I don't know, February. Ooh, give me something by February, you're all fired, you're all going to the gulag. Amazing. Right after that, Elvira Nabulina over the Bank of Russia was like, here you go, here, for them to bless. And now the Russians very quickly had, he's like, I don't care whether you like it or not. It does not fucking matter. We need to have this. We need to make the people who are mining Bitcoin legal. They need to have a framework in which to operate. Otherwise, they're not going to stay. And clearly, we need, all the investment capital we can get here in Russia. And by the way, we also produce some of the cheapest power in the fucking world. So would you stop? Clearly, the people who were dragging their feet in Russia were no different than the people who were dragging their feet here. Same thing. So, why was Tether blessed? Because you need to have something. If Bitcoin has been identified as a strategic asset, then you need to have something that it can trade against to keep it liquid, so that you can make a market in it that's predictable and minimizes the volatility of it. I use minimize volatility with my scare quotes. But relatively speaking, and so you don't want like 6 or 7 stable coins out there. You want one that you ultimately have effectively control over. And then at the same time, if you're Powell and you're trying to change the rate of flow of capital around the world, the way dollars flow around the world, and you need a hot sink for treasury demands, for treasuries. It's say you have this situation where the world is de-dollarizing and treasuries are getting sold because people are buying dollars to defend their currencies. They sell treasuries, buy dollars to fuck with the exchange rate. Well, then that money needs to flow. Those treasuries need to flow somewhere. Well, wouldn't it be great if they had a vehicle that you could expand the market cap of whenever the hell you wanted? And here's another thing for you. So Tether becomes that. And even if the Bitcoin market itself doesn't change, i.e. there's X number of Bitcoins per day trade, right? But the price goes up. If volume doesn't change, but the price goes up, that means you have a demand for Tether, because the market cap of Bitcoin is going up. The amount of Bitcoins that are trading on a daily basis, say that's a constant. That means that if Bitcoin goes up in price, that it goes up in market cap, then Tether has to go up in market cap in order to keep the same volume of trade liquefied. If you go and look at Tether's market cap chart since the election, maybe it's calmed down in the last couple of days, but just go and do like a 30-day chart. And you'll see, like at 8:30 every freaking morning, when the treasury market opens, it's like boop, it goes up throughout the day, and then beep, and then stair steps up, because at 8:30 they're literally in there buying billions of dollars of treasuries on the New York Open every morning, in order to back the tethers that were traded the night before, the orders that were during the overnight market. Because remember, the treasury market's not open 24/7, 365, but Tether is, Bitcoin is. So something fucking changed, dude. Like something changed overnight, because Trump won the election and this thing has changed. Like it's unbelievable how quickly it changed. And it's really edifying, actually. Every Bitcoiner listening to my voice right now should be pumped, because what it means is that it's exactly what I was saying before the election. It's what I thought Powell was trying to do. It was like, I've said this before and I'll say it again. One of the ways you help recapitalize the United States is by recapitalizing the Federal Reserve. You recapitalize the Fed's balance sheet, which is impaired because it's got $1.7 trillion worth of mortgage-backed securities, which are unmarketable at par. You've got a couple $1 trillion worth of U.S. treasuries, which are unmarketable, right, on its balance sheet at current prices, because you know what I mean? Like at some point, there's a leverage of the amount of currency that's in circulation, the quality of the assets backing that currency in circulation is impaired, unless You allow the price of gold to rise, and you got 8,133.5 tons of gold on the balance sheet, and it's rising. And by proxy, you have Bitcoin on your balance sheet through Tether, because you've got Bitcoin backing the treasury, part of the treasury market. And Bitcoin can be used because of this as by proxy through Tether, can be used to liquefy the repo markets, because Bitcoin becomes the collateral that these treasuries are trading against. That's a different fucking world than we've been thinking about. And the Bank of England is not playing that game. The European Union is continuing to be as hostile to Bitcoin as humanly fucking possible. And they're going to fail. The United States, it's making it official. And I've said, I know I said this on, if not on your podcast, I know I've said it a dozen times to all the Bitcoin maxis. What'll bake your fucking noodle is the day when the day the Federal Reserve puts Bitcoin on its balance sheet. Well, it's already happened, just not officially. In the same way that the Fed hasn't restated on its balance sheet what the gold it supposedly owns. And I know there are people out there now, all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh, the federal government doesn't have any of the gold. Like, really? Who do you think put that fucking idea in your head? Same freaking people who are, trying to meme us in the World War III, to bring this all the way back around, who don't have any gold, who sold it all at the bottom, who are selling out the country by the pound every day. Like, duh. Me, I believe the gold is there, even if it's been leased out, even if there are IOUs written against it. Got news for you: the gold never left the fucking vault, and possession is 9/10 of the law. And who do we owe it to? To the same fucking banks that own the Fed. So who do you think they loaned it out against? This is part of this whole argument about we don't own the gold. This is dumb. Like, I would be now. If so, then where'd the gold go? What, we sent it to China? Oh, go fuck yourself. We did not. Did we send it to the Bank of England? No, go fuck yourself. We did not. That I don't buy.
All right. I gotta ask to expand on that. There's just two more topics I want to squeeze in here.
Sure.
So I'll ask these three questions in a row from X. People asked, and I have the same question. So this one's from Steve Brown. Why should we stop with all the end the Fed rhetoric, at least for now? And
Sure.
Compounding on that, Matt C. Snow said, order of operations. Why should American Bitcoiners consider the idea of ending foreign central banks first before ending the Fed? It's a similar question. How can we use the Fed to our own advantage in a Machiavellian way as Americans and as freedom-loving Bitcoiners? And it just kind of gets into the sort of capital flows and the central banking wars. So how would you say, I mean, Bitcoiners are like, let's just end the fucking Fed.
Right. And then replace it with what?
Right.
And what are we going to replace the dollar system with? And how are we going to value our assets? We're just going to tomorrow just turn around and like send Bitcoin to $5 million a coin. And then do we have a financial system that's built up around Bitcoin to allow that to happen? And then how are you going to pay? How are you going to handle the payment layer? How are you going to handle this? How are you going to handle that? Like, there's trillions of dollars bound up in covenants and money around the world and assets that are valued based on these things. Like, we have the most powerful central bank in the world. It's more powerful than the BIS, more powerful than the IMF. Okay. It's the Fed. The Fed controls the value of the most powerful currency in the world. Why would you give up that power? Because they're going to continue to send shit money, fiat money, into the system because it's cheaper. Gresham's law: bad money drives out good. No, overvalued money circulates and undervalued money doesn't. So Bitcoin is hodled and gold is hodled until such time as they are valued at a level that is less than that they're capable of circulating. Right? That's Gresham's law is always misstated. Gresham's law will destroy the United States if we get rid of the Fed tomorrow, because they will beggar thy neighbor with shitty euros, and people will spend those and invest and use those to invest and pounds and everything else. Will. And they'll use those to buy the gold and to buy the Bitcoin and everything else. Like, you go back to the gold standard tomorrow and all the gold will leave the vault. Right? Because gold should be valued at $40,000 an ounce, but it's valued at $26.50. So you either allow gold to go to $40,000 an ounce before you do that. And same thing with Bitcoin. And the Fed has the ability to set the price of those hard assets in terms of our money. Let's take them off the board, and we lose. Because we're not going to, we end the Fed tomorrow. We put it back under the Treasury. You trust the Treasury? So you're going to take the monetary creation system out of the hands of the commercial banking system, which is what built the country, and we're going to like hand that and the bond yields and the trillions of dollars in bonds and everything else. We're just going to get rid of those tomorrow, and all the hedging strategies and all the risk laying off strategies and the insurance industries and we're going to get rid of all that. Really? You're going to replace that with Bitcoin, or are you going to replace that with gold? A hard gold standard tomorrow? No, you're not, because no one wants that. This is the world we have. In the world we have, the Fed is the most powerful institution in the world. Should it have that power? No. Did we devolve that power out of the Fed for what the Fed is, how it's currently constituted? Yes. I want a Fed that goes, you get rid of the Fed in order of operations by taking the Fed from where it is today back to a 12 regional banks competing against each other for capital, which is what it was originally designed to do, and provide elastic money to the banking system if it gets in trouble regionally. How can you do that? Well, as a consequence of SOFR, you will have that anyway, because you have a domestic debt indexing rate, which will then allow for markets to bid for money. Once you've destroyed, first you have to destroy the Eurodollar system. Then you have to destroy the Eurodollar system and bring it back to the point where it's not an order of magnitude or two bigger than the domestic dollar markets. Because right now, you get rid of the Fed, what do you do with all the dollars floating around the world? Like, tomorrow, what are you going to do with those? So the thing to do from an order of operations perspective is to allow the Fed to drain all the other central banks that are hostile to it. He'll stop using the Fed as a tool to grease the wheels of globalism. You're operating on the people who don't understand my argument, don't understand that when globalism was ascendant and the Fed was a tool of globalism run by globalists with a globalist debt indexing and currency arbitrage system that was in place, i.e. the Plaza Accord, the LIBOR standards, the Plaza Accord and all that shit. Once you understand that, during those years, the Fed didn't work for us at all. And now we have a Federal Reserve reversing that. Now we have SOFR. Now we have a Fed, and we have a Fed that needs reform. Don't get me wrong, but you reform the Fed through natural market forces, as opposed to, some like end game decree. I mean, even Ron Paul was like, that's a dumb idea, because it will literally usher in a kind of 90% deflation that would be catastrophic, because you're missing all the complexity of the legal agreements around the world and the trade agreements and the this and the investment covenants. And like, what do the family offices do? And how do people pay their fucking bills and all the rest of it? No, you change the system by changing the way the system deals with the value, the pricing of dollars. You do that first, which is what we've been doing. Once that's, once that's accomplished most of its goal, which is to have the dollar stop liquefying by everything. Now you can have the Fed. Now you have the real potential for the Fed to be reformed. I'll keep doing what Powell's been doing, shrink the balance sheet, allow the hard assets that the country that's effectively on the national balance sheet. Let them rise in value. Again, we're mining all the fucking Bitcoin. We mine a lot of gold. We're stopping the flow of physical gold out of the country. Oh, by the way, that's soft capital controls have already gone up around the entire gold industry. Vince and I have done multiple podcasts on this. And you could even throw the national gold out on the yield curve in order to, finance a lot of the unfunded liabilities. That's another argument. And I've got literally, I need to read this. I haven't had a chance to read. I got to send a copy of this by her publisher the other day, Judy Shelton's book. I need to read it. I've read her papers and I've listened to her talk. I know what her argument is, but I'm on that one. So we do that process. At the end of the day, bringing the Fed back to its original conception, with Bitcoin as a strategic asset, with gold as a strategic asset within the monetary system, and we can easily have a hybrid transition system, that hybrid period where we have, where we remonetize gold and we monetize in many ways Bitcoin, but we still have the vestiges of the old system running. It's got hard collateral underneath it as opposed to just promises to pay. And we can encourage competition within the 12 regional banks through the use of SOFR and, bidding for investment capital as a premium or a deficit to or discount to SOFR. And we can obviate and get rid of the need for a monolithic Fed funds rate. And eventually, the Fed can get away from its 2% inflation target, but that only changes if we also reform the fiscal side of the equation as well. We change the way we regulate the economy, we change the way we collect taxes. How about we do all of those things? How about we get rid of capital gains tax on selling gold? How about we get rid of capital gains tax on Bitcoin? By the way, Chevron, the Supreme Court overturning Chevron literally tells the IRS that you don't have the right and the power anymore to decide how to classify Bitcoin as an asset. Because that was just decreed by the IRS. No act of Congress. I want to talk about really being radical. Start really thinking about this. The Fed's the Fed's a problem, but it's not the problem. The real problem is in DC. The real problem was the 16th and 17th Amendment and the Federal Reserve Act. All three of those things had to be done at the same time in order to betray the country. I want direct election of senators to go away before I want the Fed to go away. I want the original federalism where senators were sent to Washington by the state legislatures. And if they don't do the state's business, they can be fucking recalled. I don't need term limits, folks. I have state legislatures. I want the 17th Amendment repealed. I want the 16th Amendment repealed. It was never properly ratified in the fucking first place, and we all know it. Let's start there. Let's shrink the size of the federal government to the point where it doesn't matter. And let the commercial banking system actually do its job, which is to lend money to people to build businesses with, as opposed to doing casino gambling in globalized friggin' markets. I got news for you. Everything we're seeing now, Jamie Dimon is blessed. It came out this week, over the weekend. Dimon and Trump have been working together for the last year. Bloomberg said it. The fucking Post, the New York Post said it. Bloomberg said it. Got news for you. I was right about all that shit. And so I know somebody else asked me today. I know one of the other questions that showed up on Twitter today because I checked I saw all that, which was, does Tom ever get tired of winning? Fuck no. I never get tired of winning. Why would you? Winning's rocks. I'm an American. I like to win. Patton's my spirit hero. This is my spirit animal. I wouldn't give a hoot in hell for a man who lost and laughed. Right? Like we should never be tired of winning. Like the commercial banking system understands that we can serve. They know this and they understand this better than we do. Let them do their job, which is get back to actual lending, as opposed to the bullshit that they were forced into because of the hyper-financialization of our markets, because we weren't in control of our own monetary policy. And then let's decide whether or not we need to get rid of the Federal Reserve, which I firmly believe we will at some point. Or not. And we'll have it be so small that all its job is to be a lender of last resort with a couple of with a couple $100 billion on its balance sheet to lend to banks that get into trouble. The original conception of the Fed was not a bad idea. It was always going to be corrupted, no argument. But we need to have a conversation about 100% reserve banking and community banking and everything else. We're so far removed from that right now that if you want that tomorrow, are you working out 4 hours a day? Are you a dead shot with iron sights at 150 yards? Do you have 3 years worth of stored canned goods and toilet paper? Fuck you. If you don't, you're not ending the Fed. You live in an apartment. Okay. You got, you don't have enough testosterone. You've got a pedophile's mustache. Fuck off. I don't want to hear it. Like, I'm just over fucking libertarian. Fucking win the best the fucking world outside between central banks, which is what happened. It's a fight over the future of money, private formation of capital, public formation of capital. You get rid of the Fed. If you do these things now, we're going to wind up with the money's never going to flow into the U.S. to recapitalize the country. And the money's going to stay in China, in Europe, and in the UK. You're going to let these people who stole your life and your parents' lives and your grandparents' lives and your great-grandparents' lives. They stole all the money, all the wealth that they generated. They stole it all. It's sitting in their castles. It's sitting in their bank accounts in the Caymans. It's sitting in the vaults and all around the world where they both hold all their fucking money. And we have them spending their seed corn right now to stop us. And you want to end the goddamn Fed. Okay. How about you just tell me that you want to lose? It's just dumb. We're killing these people. They're so fucking on the ropes. They're ready to start World War goddamn 3 over this. They're threatening us with nuclear fire. Take the fucking hint. I gave a version of this talk at the Mises Institute, and it was not nearly this confrontational. It was, hey, we have the right story. We can help them. We can win. Let's go help them win. Tom Luongo clown and won't release the speech.
Yeah, I heard about that. It was Grief Z Hoddle who, asked if you were tired of winning. And it's kind of speaking of winning and thinking about, the last 3 or 4 years were kind of really fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
And, I saw two things. I think there was just a lot of laws broken during COVID. I feel like I feel like someone should go to jail for that,
Oh God, yes.
and I'm sure there were laws broken. It seemed like there was political lawfare in the last year. It seemed like they went after Trump in a way that was outside of the lines.
Hmm.
So, it's a two-part question. It's like, do you think Trump kind of does something about that in terms of retribution? And do you think that's good or bad? Whether he does it or not, should it be done?
No, he okay. Should he specifically go and enact revenge to the people who went against him in
It
particular?
is,
No.
let's say it's not revenge, but I mean, just looking at it from the lens of maybe the great financial crisis, no one went to jail for breaking the rules.
I know. Yeah.
And at some point, I feel like we need needs not the right word. The justice in society would be good
Hmm.
to feel like there were the same set of rules for everybody. And so were there? I'm assuming rules were broken. I'm not an expert on, you know.
Yeah. I mean, my, you know, yeah, no, they have broken a lot of rules. And I'll be honest with you, like the way I've been reading this, honestly, has been when you stop to think about, again, correlation doesn't necessarily imply causality, but from the moment we started down the path of SOFR and ending LIBOR, that's when everything kind of went crazy, right? Starting in 2017. And that's when everything had to be accelerated. Because again, it's about the future of money. And so if you can destroy the United States by any means necessary, then you do so, because what you're trying to do is maintain the control over money and the value of, it's not just the value of the money, it's the it's it is ultimately about the value of money, but it's about what the money actually represents, and how it can be used as a tool for maintaining power, right? And so I really do believe at this point that so much of the the lawfare, the color revolution attempts against the United States, and the acceleration of all that was done in order to break the Fed from trying to drain the world of the offshore dollar markets. Because if you can control, because again, go back to what I was saying at the beginning of the podcast about Patreon and Jack Dorsey and all that. If you can blame the US and its dollar diplomacy, or its, and enforce at the barrel of the US military's gun, then you can turn the world against us. And then you can continue to run the world from the shadows while you have your public scapegoat, which is what they were doing. When they controlled the Fed greased the wheels of these globalist shitbags in Europe. And I'm dead serious when I say this is centered in Europe. The most degenerate fucking people are in Europe. Okay. And they wanted their colonies back. And this is like, I've skinned this cat multiple ways in the past, right? But at the end of the day, that's what this is about. They don't have any fucking physical collateral. They have no energy. They have no natural resources. They have nothing. And they go out and they colonize the world, these fucking locusts. And then when they're done raping an area clean, they move on. They take all their money. They take all their money back out. They go apply it somewhere else. So they were raping the friggin' shit out of the United States, destroying it in order to then move their money to China. And then they were planning on taking it to China. And then she comes to power and says, fuck a whole lot of that, refuses to open the capital account, and then starts draining them on the one side. And then we had a sovereigntist restoration here in the United States with Trump in 2016. And that starts the process. And then the people within the US who believe in the US put shit in place to reverse the capital flow, specifically SOFR. Because the English have run their bullshit, and the fucking French in their colonial shit in Northern Africa, with the remnants of which are in the Central Africa. And the British did it. They've always understood that if you can create a currency arbitrage that's durable, that to your advantage, then you win, because you suck all the money out of. They're mercantilists. So you create a currency arbitrage that doesn't close, and then you suck the wealth from one area of the world to you. That's what they've been doing. And so when we established a dollar reserve standard for real in around 1981 or 82, when Volcker goes to 19%, and by 1984, London is pricing dollars for us. How the fuck did London get how did they get they get the gig? Well, because City of London is the place where at the time was where all the international transactions were clearing. It's where the Forex was, the foreign exchange was happening. It still happens. The British pound settles 30% of Forex trades around the world still. That's all they have. And by the way, that's where the banks make most of their money today. They don't make it on net interest margin lending. They make it on Forex fees. That's their real bread and butter. And they don't want to give that up. And then there's insurance and there's this and there's all these other, intended stuff. But, they really make their money on Forex. When I was talking to Vince about this in a podcast, and when he brought that up, I'm like, oh shit, you're right. So that's what they're really trying to defend here. So why can't we have that business? Why does City of London get to have that business? Why did and like, no, we don't. They don't get to keep that business if we decide not to. So, ultimately, I think that I think back to the original part of the question on this is what were you? I got lost in a little bit of this. So what you ultimately wanted me to answer was, why the lawfare? Why did they go this route?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why did they go this route? Well, it's because they were trying to defend that. And they would, by any means necessary, they needed to destroy the United States from within. And then the last way once you get a country like us to the state we're in now, where we're divided politically, we still have this big military that we can throw at somebody. And so you get us involved in wars we can't afford to fight, and that's going to be the final bankruptcy. And if we're gonna have this fight a war, we should fight that war for whose ends? To defend and to defend Europe's ability to go out and colonize Russia and or the Middle East and destroy the United States. And maybe the United States is so powerful we have to get them involved in 3 wars: Middle East, Ukraine, and China. And then everybody gets taken down a peg. Default on the old system. I mean, but it's clearly what if you listen to the British and Macron in France, and you listen to them very carefully, they'll tell you exactly what they want. They needed, and Ursula von der Leyen and at the European Union, they all want the same thing, which is to break Russia up. Don't let them have Ukraine. Don't let them have Russia. They need the collateral if you're going to collapse the existing system and default on all your debt. And by the way, the British have defaulted on their debt at least twice. By the way, they're called consuls. George Soros has talked about this. So if you're going to default on the system, the reason why they were able to default on their bonds previously was because they were still the most powerful nation in the world. So now we defaulted. You're not going to get your money back. You who invested with us the first time, but we are going to pay you in perpetuity. Oh, and by the way, we're still in charge. So here's our new business venture. Yeah, we went bankrupt last week, but we're still, it's like saying we're Microsoft. We went bankrupt because we fucked up, but we're still Microsoft. We still have all these lines of business. So Windows is still gotta get or whatever, or Apple. Imagine if Apple declared bankruptcy tomorrow and didn't pay their but they could still, based on their future cash flow, find a new round of investors tomorrow because nothing about the core business has changed. But they have to cram down the old. They have to cram down the old investors, and then they can issue a new round of. That's what they want to do. They also want to do it at a global level. And in order for them to do that this time, they need to have control over the two biggest piles of natural resources in the world. One's in the United States and Canada, and the other one's in Russia. And both of those countries are saying, you know what? Fuck you. No. It's not really more complicated than that, guys. Everything else is all down. Everything else I've talked about tonight is all downstream of that. They want to collapse the system and have control over the future cash flow streams. And they've pre-sold all this on the Ukraine war. Now it's envelope day. And they don't have it done. They don't have Ukraine. Russia's not going to collapse. The United States doesn't want to go to war with China. We just elected Donald Trump, who's saying, nope, we're pulling it all home. Drill, baby, drill. We're investing for America. Trump can do a half-assed fucking job of this, and it's still so fucking powerful that the United States will last for another 200 years. So what are their end games? Attempt to get us involved in World War III and tell the blue states they need to secede from the Union. And the fucking libertarians are so up their own ass, like, oh, secession's just right, man. And no, fuck you. Okay? The Northeast and California have 160 million people and they produce 50% of the fucking GDP of the United States. And if they leave, we're left holding the bag on $36 trillion worth of debt and $180 trillion worth of unfunded liabilities. You fucking moron. Where do you think? And now I want you to sit down and think like somebody who controls $10 billion in a family office sitting in Europe. Where are you going to put your money? The United States is broken into pieces, where the productive part of the fucking economy is now saddled with $36 trillion worth of debt, and the shitbags, the fucking crazy fucking communist wokenistas who sold out to China and sold out to the fucking. Where do you think they're going to put their goddamn money? The money's going to stay in fucking Europe. Everything's going to collapse here. And we're fucked. No, not fucking secession. California doesn't get to fucking leave. They stole all of our goddamn money. Neither does New York. Fuck that place too. No. Fuck no. No. The United States can break up because it's too fucking big 20 years from now, 50 years from now. But not today. Today, we take out those fucking limey shitbags and we take out those fucking frogs. And we take out we take out the fucking Vatican. Take out all those fucking people. They need to go. Then we can do this. You free humanity first, then you can decide, oh, well, we'll have peaceable people, moving across arbitrary political borders. Fucking idiots. Literal fucking morons. Because you just don't get it. Because my property rights and the Fed. Okay, fine. No one even understands how we would get from point A to point Z. We're just going to do that tomorrow. Okay, you just clearly you've never done anything other than, I don't know, anything more complicated than run a guild in World of Warcraft, which is actually more complicated than running, even a small business. And you should know better by now, because every fucking guild leader I've ever met in World of Warcraft runs a really successful fucking business. No, you were the rogue trying to ninja loot. Fuck off. I'm just so over it, dude. I really am. Like, it's so, like, no, these people are trying to destroy you and you're carrying water for them. No, they don't get to secede. No, we make them stay and then we decapitalize them. The same way we decapitalize City of London and Frankfurt and Paris and Brussels. Fuck those people. They don't believe in freedom. They don't believe in property rights. We fought a fucking war 250 years ago to get away from these fucking assholes. And you want them to, and you just want to like hand them the win? All right, fine. It would be like it would be like the 1978 Yankees in game 6 of the World Series after Reggie Jackson's already hit 2 home runs that night. That because Charlie Huff is on the fucking mound and Jackson has supposedly has trouble with the knuckleball, that we're going to sub him out for, I don't know, the schmuck on the bench. Yeah, okay. No, we're gonna just sit. We'll just sit Reggie Jackson down. Okay. And you people wonder why you can't get more than 2% of the fucking vote, and why you had your party taken over by a bunch of fucking Trotskyites this summer.
It makes me think of it makes me very hopeful. It makes me feel like there's been a zeitgeist shift. It makes me think of two scenes in two different movies. One, Star Wars: A New Hope, Episode 4, which I think of as Episode 1.
Of
But,
course.
Sort of towards the end when Luke's trying to destroy the evil empire and he's on his own. And it's still a tenuous mission though. It's, you feel very hopeful, you feel very optimistic, you feel like it's going to happen, but things could go wrong. It also makes me think of like
It's that moment in Star Wars. It's actually that moment in Star Wars when Luke turns off his targeting computer, and then they cut back to the base, and everybody's looking around like going, "What the fuck's he doing?" We're at that moment right there. It's like when Leia's looking at General Donana. I know the scene really well. I know that movie. Okay. Now what? Yeah, that's where we are.
it also makes me think of like Good Will Hunting after he beats the shit out of the guy who beat him up in kindergarten. And, he's got to go through the court system and he gets out by the skin of his teeth because the professor pulls him out to go into therapy and do math. And, it's hopeful. It's like, you're really rooting for Will, but, Will still has to kind of pull his life together and do the work, and he's going to still have his trials and tribulations. But it's very hopeful. And we mentioned sort of the strategic Bitcoin reserve. I don't know who planted the seed in my head, but it's very exciting. America kind of could write the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, its own balance sheet, its long-term liabilities. But I can't help to see, maybe there's going to be machinations of that we don't expect. Like, once that thing, you buy 1 million Bitcoin, it's now worth 20-30 trillion dollars. And a politician like maybe AOC comes along and says, hey, why don't we sell all that and pay for America's health care or pay for housing. Let's get rid of it.
Yeah,
Let's sell it.
there's always a catastrophe around the corner.
Yeah,
it's like,
and
yeah, wait, you can't. Like, what are you gonna do, man? Like,
no, I don't mean it's a bad thing. I just think it's going to be interesting how it goes.
yeah,
And
again, it's like everything else. You have to just kind of trust
yeah,
that.
and that would be a good outcome. Just that we're on that path. So
Wouldn't it be? Yeah, wouldn't it be great that we were at the point where we were so freaking rich that we could again, we're going to solve it's
we
part
could
of the
solve problems. It would be great, and we could argue over what problems we're going to solve and how we're going to use the solutions and the bullets we've acquired.
As opposed to giving up, because
yeah,
that's where,
fighting with two hands tied behind our back and
honestly,
fucking ourselves. Yeah.
well, that's what we were looking at on July 12th, right? And then Trump lived.
Yeah,
And we're in an
I
alternate
have mixed
timeline.
feelings about that whole thing. I just, if these two are really Elon and Trump are such enemies of the state, I don't see how the deep state just rolled over for them. Came out with these pew pew little assassination attempts. And
No. That was a real assassination attempt. and the universe intervened. I'm sorry, the universe, and I'm not a spiritual guy. I'm really not. The universe intervened. We're on that timeline. We're
I
in the
hope
world
so.
out. We're in the world Alex Jones made, man. I'm telling you, and that's okay. And it's have a little faith. Things happen, and they happen for a reason. And make the best of it. The deep state hasn't rolled over. They're fighting tooth and claw, but the power that they hold is very brittle because we can see them. And there are equally powerful forces saying, you know what? No. Every day, every time they try and play their fucking reindeer game. We're gonna stop Matt Gaetz from being attorney general, for example. Now, one could argue that Trump was never serious about nominating Gaetz in the first place, and that Gaetz was laid out there as bait to find out who was actually going to spend every erg of political capital they had in order to stop him from becoming AG. Why? Because of course he made a copy of the fucking Hunter Biden laptop and put it into the congressional record. They all know he has a copy of it, and he can fuck them over it. And so they fell for that, in chess terms, a kind of pawn sacrifice. Now, of course, Matt Gaetz, but now we know who those people are. So what did we see over the weekend? That McConnell and Schumer both got multi-million-dollar graft payouts from Ukraine aid. Who do you think dropped that motherfucking manila envelope on someone's desk over the weekend? Oh, by the way, Mitch, you now work for us. Oh, by the way, Schumer, fuck you. You fuck you. And we know that, and that's just a taste. That's only part of what we know about what you've done. That's what that was. McConnell's going to roll over. Lindsey Graham tried to play the game. Well, I'm against Matt Gaetz' AG. You're not. He was never against it. We know you can't pass the dead hooker live boy test. Lindsey, you work for us now. There are a lot of people out there playing very, very, very hardball. We're just used to them playing hardball against us. We don't know what it looks like when we have people actually playing that game for us. And so we naturally, because we're abused children, distrust it. And it's okay. There's nothing it's the rational response. It is. But it takes a lot of time to rebuild trust. And you should maintain your skepticism. But it happened. It wasn't a hard shot. Crooks missed. The universe intervened. That's it. If the timeline that we've been given is anywhere close to correct, the cop shows up at the moment he was about to take a shot. He knows the jig is up. He turns around. He tries to take the shot. Trump moves his head. Miss. Killed 2 people in the audience. Shit happens. Assassination attempts go south all the time. We just never hear about it. I'm not talking about in the United States. I'm talking about around the world. Robert Fico in Slovakia lived. Viktor Orban has survived multiple assassination attempts. Putin has survived multiple assassination attempts. I mean, and I've heard about some of those, about the circumstances and every one of those. I'm like, yeah. And they were as close to a near miss as, not as close as Trump, a quarter of an inch, but I'm living with it. So once you take that shot, though, the old adage holds true. You take a shot at the king, you better not miss. They missed, and now they're fucked. And they can kill him now, but the minute he nominated Vance, forget it. I don't. I'm not sure I trust JD at this point, but I trust him a fuckload more than anybody else you could have put in that position, other than maybe Gabbard. But Gabbard wasn't. She wasn't VP material for Trump at this moment in time. But there's, there's a the whole story just tells you that the only rational explanation for why things have worked out the way they have is because in that moment, a whole bunch of people stood up and went, okay, that's enough. That's it. You took a shot, you missed, and now we're taking you out. Cedric, I've been talking since 10 o'clock this morning. I'm really tired. I
Yeah,
need to go.
we're gonna round it out here. So I've enjoyed this immensely. I struggle with what to believe. It's one of the reasons I'm a Bitcoiner is you don't have to trust. You could verify it for yourself, and it's a truth machine. It really resonates with me. Um, you know, so it's the only thing that I know that is real. But you talk about memories being a kid. When I was like 5, my brother gave me a huge rock of what he told me was gold. And I brought it to
Mm-hmm.
school, and at show and tell, I showed the whole class my rock of gold, and my teacher, in third grade teacher, explained to me like, yes, that's not gold.
Right.
There's no way you're walking around with a pound of gold in your hand,
Right.
and your brother lied to you. And I went home and I told my brother the story because I argued that there's no way he lied to me, and it's really gold. And he told me, it's fool's gold. It's
Right.
not real gold. We bought it in Grand Canyon when we were 2. My brother's 9 years older than me. But I ended up in a Costco randomly about a month ago. My wife dragged me there, and they got the gold little bars there. And I've always wanted to. Bitcoiners hate this, but I have a little appreciation for gold, especially since as a Bitcoiner with Trace Mayer and the history of gold and be able to touch gold and bring it into the physical world
Mm-hmm.
in a way. I mean, I think Bitcoin connects the real world to the physical world, but it's nice to actually understand the Lindy effect and the actual feel of gold. And I don't know if this thing is real, but I feel like it's real and it's interesting. And speaking to you has given me a tremendous amount of optimism for where we are in the world right now and what we can accomplish and what we can fight for, and then keep fighting. So I'll leave it to you for any final words and to let us know where we can find you in your work.
So I had that same kind of moment when I first, I've told the story before, and I'll say it again. The first time I held a piece of gold in my hand, I talked about buying gold for 2 years. My wife finally got tired of me, and she bought me a small 20th ounce piece of gold for Christmas one year. Little um, Perth Mint, Year of the Dragon, 20th ounce. And I held it in my hand. It was like 20th ounce piece of gold. It's like this fucking big, right? Right.
I got
But
an
it's
ounce
heavy.
right here. Here is what an ounce
That's it.
looks like, and it's amazing
Right.
how
And that's,
small it is, and
yeah.
how
Well,
society
yeah.
and the world
Even that,
values it.
even right, even that, you go, holy shit. And so holding a piece of gold for the first time, making a real connection with my dog that I adopted from the pound, like the moment I met him, and it was a preternatural moment. And one of these, maybe the next time I'm on, I'll tell you this. I'll tell you that story in detail. And then, of course, my daughter being born. Those are moments that like fundamentally change who you are. And I recommend every Bitcoiner that's living in their head and they're looking at the number go up on their screens, and they look at their Strike account or wherever they hold their wallet or whatever, and they're like, "Wow, I have some Bitcoin," and it's a number on the screen. It's not the same. You should own an ounce of gold. You should own, or a couple of ounces of gold. You should own some. You should own some Bitcoin. You should own some silver. You should own some this. You should own some U.S. Treasuries. You should own a little bit of everything because it's savings, and you don't know what's going to win. And you should always hedge your bets because hell, I watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off with my daughter for the first time the other night, and life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop to appreciate it, you could miss it. So you don't know where life is going to take you. You don't know what's going to happen next. Don't believe you understand that you know where we're going to wind up, because you don't. So enjoy the journey and hedge your bets. It's never a bad idea. You're not betraying Bitcoin by buying gold. And it's not a logical decision. If you live everything without, if you do that without any, like Andreessen and Joe Rogan were talking about, AI government and stuff like that in order to try and get rid of the crate, get rid of the irrationality of it all. Wouldn't it be great? Well, yeah, it would be great. But then again, at the same time, they're also saying, yeah, if you remove the humanity from the process, if you remove the predictable, if you only go with the predictable and the rational, you wind up with a bunch of boring shit, and then we never create anything brilliant. Because you need crazies, you need people, visionaries, you need that spark of like the insane. Yes, let's go to fucking Mars because it's cool. Tommy Kerrigan and I were talking about this the other day, this morning or this afternoon about this Neil deGrasse Tyson because saying Elon Musk wants to send us to Mars. Well, what's the shareholder return on that? It'll never happen. Like, it's not about the shareholder return, you fucking DEI hire. Fuck you, asshole, you fat asshole. It's about going to fucking Mars, dude. You can find me at TFL1728 on Twitter. You can find me at my blog at tomluongo.me, and you can find me at Patreon/Gold Ghosts and Guns, where I do this twice a week for my patrons privately, and the monthly newsletter, where this month we take a victory lap for Gen X.
Tom, this has been so dope. As always, do I open this thing up and play with it like a toy and connect with it at a real...
Yes, I would.
And does that devalue this thing?
If you're going to do it, and if you do it with silver, just know that you're like going to ruin the value of the silver coin. But silver's only $30 a coin, so fuck it. That
would devalue this. If I take this gold,
no, it would not. It would not devalue it whatsoever. The one thing I actually recommend everybody do: buy 2 1-ounce silver coins, sacrifice them to you fidgeting with them in your pants, and when you go out, when you leave the house, always bring them with you. You want to watch yourself go, do I want to spend my money on that? Would I be willing to trade these 2 ounces of silver in my pocket to buy that? No. That cured me of a lot of weird
how you broke up
anywhere. You go to the pawn shop and buy some, that's what I would do. So
yeah, it's amazing to connect with this stuff.
I've done it. It's a really powerful thing, man. It really is. So with that said,
thank you so much, Tom. This has been incredible.
Yeah, it's been fun. Cedric, we'll round up in 2 weeks.
I can't wait.